Imagine a game where every pass matters. Every goal feels like a miracle, and 90 minutes can either break your heart or make your week. Hey there, welcome to the Mr. Productivity Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Struczewski, and this is going to be a different episode than I normally do. I normally come on this podcast and talk about all things productivity, but today we're going to talk about my favorite sport, and more than that, why my favorite sport is the best sport in the world. Not just statistically, but I'm going to prove it to you. Well, sort of. If you've never been here before, thank you so much for tuning in. You want to find out everything about how I can help you be more productive, get more clarity, be more focused, be better at time management, goal setting, head on over to my website, mrproductivity.com, M-I-S-T-E-R, mrproductivity.com. So I am 60 years young, and over the course of my 60 years, I have watched just about every American sport possible. I grew up watching countless games of countless sports on television when I was going through school, through college, and in my adulthood. The NFL, I started out as a fan of the New York Giants because that was my dad's team. I also was a fan of the San Francisco 49ers, only because Joe Montana played on that team. I was a fan of Notre Dame, and he happened to play for San Francisco. I don't overthink things here. And now that I live in Houston, I am a fan of the Houston Texans. Well, sort of. You'll find out what I mean in a minute. I also followed the National Hockey League. I loved going to minor league hockey games up at Rochester. Used to watch the Rochester Amerks, or you might have called them the Rochester Americans. They were in the American Hockey League. As I became more of a fan of ice hockey, I followed the National Hockey League, and my team was the Dallas Stars, first in Minnesota as the Minnesota North Stars, and then later as the Dallas Stars. I was a big baseball fan, but not Major League Baseball. I followed the Rochester Red Wings. They were in the International League. Used to go to those games at Silver Stadium. It doesn't even exist anymore. They built a brand new stadium up there in the city. And later in life, I was a big fan of the NBA, followed the Bulls through their 6 championship seasons. And then, of course, being in Houston again, I was a fan of the Houston Rockets. But that all changed in August of 2022. I have a friend of mine. Her name is Ann. She lives in Sheffield, England. And we were chatting on WhatsApp, and she had asked me if I ever watched football. And I naively said, yeah, I love the National Football League. I watched the Houston Texans, the San Francisco 49ers. She goes, no, not your football. I mean the real football. What are you talking about? What real football? She said, you call it soccer, but the world calls it football. I'm like, I used to play soccer when I was a little kid, but I haven't watched it in years. Quite frankly, I thought it was boring. She goes, I want you to watch the first game. The Premier League is about ready to start their new season. I want you to watch a game this coming Friday. And I'm like, oh, do I have to? I don't want to watch soccer. She goes, it's not soccer. It's called football. Okay. All right. If it's going to make you feel better, I will watch a football game this weekend. But what team should I follow? I don't know any of the teams in the Premier League. She goes, cheer on Man City because that's my team. It's the easiest thing to do. I said, fine. So I watched the first match, and I remember one play. I don't remember who the players' names were, but one of the defensive players kicked the ball from his end of the pitch, not a field, it's called a pitch, diagonally across to the winger, and the ball landed right on the guy's foot. And I'm like, holy cow, that's like a Tom Brady pass in European football. And then they subsequently scored. Well, my interest was piqued because unlike many American sports, over there in Europe, or if you watch any soccer games here in America, it's 2 45-minute halves. They don't do timeouts and put the offensive players on the team and the defensive players and end the period and end the quarter. It's 45 minutes played at once. And they have a really interesting thing, if you're not aware of it, that if there's a delay during the half, they make up those times during something called stoppage time. So if someone scores a goal and there's a 3-minute celebration, well, that 3 minutes gets played at the end of the half. They don't just like evaporate. So after the first match, I'm like, okay, I'm slightly interested. She said, watch one more match. So I watched one more match and I became hooked. And I have been a Man City fan ever since August 2022. And I'm very clear with telling people I chose Man City because that was my friend's team. I did not know that Man City was going to win the treble that first year. Now, for you that don't know what a treble is, it means you win. There's 4 championships you can win every year. There is your league title, because England, that's the country I follow the most, their English football. There's also the FA Cup, Football Association Cup, and then there's the EFL Cup, English Football League Cup, also known as the Caribou Cup. And then Europeans have this thing called the Champions League. So if you win 3 of the 4, I don't think anyone's won all 4, you win the treble. Well, that year, City won the Premier League, they won the Champions League, and they won the FA Cup. And it was really exciting. What a year to start following a sport, right? So I have become such a snob of English football. I have been able to understand the intricacies of the game, except for offsides, which I don't think anybody in the world knows what offsides is in football. But what makes football, European football, so interesting that I didn't see in American sports is people become fans of a team over in England or in Europe, and you never hear of people changing teams. I remember in the National Football League when Team A is doing really good. Oh, they got all these fans. They start playing poorly, and all of a sudden, it's the next thing. Who's the next great team? Over there, you live and die with Man City. You live and die with Man United. You live and die with Everton. You live and die with the Wolves or any of the other 16 teams. You don't change teams. Now, granted, a lot of these fans are from the towns of the team, but I live in Houston, Texas, and I'm a Man City fan. I'm never going to choose another team. And they have something very interesting over in Europe for these football leagues. They have something called derbies. Now, they spell it DERBYS or DERBIES. What they are competitions, usually around teams within your graphical area. So in Manchester, there's not one Premier League team, there's 2. There's Man City and Man United. Man City is blue, Man United is red. And I like to channel my inner Frank Burns from the TV show in the 70s, where he used to say, better dead than red. Of course, he's talking about communists, but Man City people like to say better dead than red. Man City people do not like Liverpool or Arsenal. And guess what? Arsenal doesn't like Liverpool or Man City. And Liverpool doesn't like Arsenal or Man City. These are the top teams, seems like all the time in the league. And so I have learned to appreciate the heated rivalries of the teams in the different leagues and the different cups. Now, I noticed a couple years ago, the National Basketball Association, also known as the NBA, started doing this in the League Cup, which is kind of strange because the same teams that play in the league are playing in the cup. Now, in the FA Cup or the EFL Cup over in English football, any team from any football league in England can qualify to play in this cup. Now, granted, when you get to the quarterfinals, the semifinals, the finals, it's usually the Premier League teams, but any team can qualify. In the NBA, it's just the same teams that are playing anyway, so it's kind of weird to me. But I have fallen in love with all aspects of the game. And I will tell you, I know the terminology now. It's not a field. It's called a pitch. It's not a season. It's called a campaign. It's not called cleats like we call here in American soccer. They're called boots. So if you have to put your cleats in the trunk, you put your boot in the boot. I just love how it is more of a gentlemanly sport. When a player gets subbed off, they clap and all the fans clap. It's just something that they do. And speaking of being subbed out, there's 11 players, 11 footballers on the pitch, 1 goalkeeper and 10 defense players, for lack of a better term. You're only allowed to do 5 substitutions the entire match. That's it. I love this. So if you use up all your 5 subs and then one of your players gets hurt, you can't replace them. There's no exception to this rule, except if your goalkeeper gets hurt, you can replace the goalkeeper, but no other player can get replaced. Also, they have these things called yellow cards and red cards in European football. So if you do a minor foul, the referee, there's 1 referee on the field and there's 2 side judges, they may give you a yellow card. You get 2 yellow cards. 2 yellow cards equals a red card, you're out of the game. And there's other consequences, like if you get too many yellow cards, too many red cards, you can be suspended for future games. But here's the thing. If you use up all your subs and one of your players does something really stupid like a violent tackle and gets a red card, you can't replace that player. I think this is something they should do in American sports. Don't just kick the player out of the game for doing the violent conduct and then allow someone else come in to replace them. Let the team play a man down for the duration of the game. Now, hockey sort of does this on power plays for a 2-minute, a double minor, or a major. But if a player gets kicked out of the game for fighting or gross misconduct, they may serve a 10-minute penalty, but then they put another player in the replacement. In European football, when you're out, you don't get to replace that player. You play a man down. And I've seen people get red carded in the first 5 or 10 minutes of a match, and that's a long time. That's 80 minutes to play a man down. Couple things I do not like about European football. Number 1, VAR. VAR stands for Video Assisted Referee. They're constantly watching to see if there was a foul, a handball, or some other infraction that the referee didn't see because he can't see everything that's happening on the pitch. And so they have these video-assisted referees. The problem is there doesn't appear to be a time limit on these VAR reviews. And if one team's got the momentum and VAR takes 7 minutes, well, then the momentum could easily switch to the other side. So I like VAR, but I wish they would set like a 90-second or 2-minute time limit. And if they don't make a decision or they can't make a decision, the play on the field stands as called or not called. The other thing is footballers are playing far too many matches. So remember what I told you. Let's stick with English football for a moment. They have the Premier League. Starts in mid-August, goes to the end of May. During that time, they also play in the Champions League if you qualify from the previous season, or should I say campaign. They also play in the FA Cup, which is primarily from January to May. They also play in the Caribou Cup, also the EFL Cup, and that goes from August until December. But wait, there's more. There's these things called international breaks, which I thought, oh, wow, they get a break. No, they go back to their country and play friendly games. Friendly games mean they don't count. They're just playing for their country, preparing for the World Cup. Oh, and then there's the World Cup, which they're going to play in the United States in 2026. So exactly when are these footballers going to get a chance to rest? That's why so many players are getting injured. They're playing almost every week, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week. And I think that's ridiculous. And I know it's a money play. I know the Premier League, the Champions League, the FA Cup, the EFL Cup, Caribou Cup, they all want more and more matches. So they're not taking matches away from these tournaments. They're adding more and more matches. And I think that's to the detriment of the game. Now, statistically, the most popular sport in the world, based on how many people watch it, by far, no one comes close, is the Premier League in England. And overall, football/soccer is the number 1 sport in the entire world. Number 2, if you're interested, is not an American sport either. It's cricket. So we love our football here in the United States, assuming you're listening to this podcast in the United States. But the top two sports were not even created here. Football, the real football, European football, you may call it soccer, was created in England. And cricket, I don't even know where cricket was created. I know it was, they play in Australia, India, Pakistan. I like cricket when I get a chance to watch it. It's like baseball on steroids. It's a lot more fun. But that's just a little break from the productivity podcast I normally do. I wanted to share my love about Man City, the Premier League, the real football. And I'd love to know what you think. So there's a couple ways you can do this. You can head on over to my website, MrProductivity.com, M-I-S-T-E-R, MrProductivity.com. Click on the contact tab and send me a message. Keep it clean. If you're an Arsenal fan, Liverpool, yes, your message will still get through. Just keep it clean. Or you can find me on TikTok or Instagram or, well, you can't send me a message on YouTube or on LinkedIn. Just go look for me and say, hey, I love the real football too, or I think that football is horrible, whatever. But I just wanted to take a break from my normal podcast and share a little bit about my true love, and I love football. And when I say I don't watch any other sport except for football, that's 99.99% true. The only exception is I did watch the Super Bowl in 2025 because I was really hoping that the Eagles would embarrass the Chiefs, and they did. So but I'm seriously, I don't watch any other American sports. None. It's only European football. And a side note, I forgot to mention this during the podcast, because I'm 6 hours behind English time, or it's called British Standard Time. When I'm watching an 8 o'clock game in England, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon over here. A 3 o'clock game in England is 9 o'clock over here. A 12:30 game is 6:30 in the morning over here. Now I get up at 4:30 in the morning, so it's not that big of a deal. So do you like football? The real football, which you may call soccer? Hit me up. Go to MrProductivity.com, M-I-S-T-E-R, MrProductivity.com, or find me on Instagram or TikTok. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope you come back next time when I'll be talking about productivity, clarity, focus, time management, goal setting. Sorry, could not resist. Take care. Keep bouncing forward. We'll see you next time.